Welcome to the episode of Locked In. This is going to be another bike review of the State Bike CoreLine in the La Fleur color. Now, this review is going to be using obviously that color set, but pretty much across State's CoreLine. If you're interested in buying that bike, I'm going to be addressing the price, the specs, and my final thoughts if you should buy it or not, all in this review, so make sure to stay tuned. So let's get into, first off, the specs of the State Bike CoreLine. Now, State as a whole has a bunch of colors that always are rotating for the CoreLine, so if you like this color, go buy it, because I don't know how long it's going to last. I really like this color scheme. It's the La Fleur 3, but if this color scheme doesn't suit you, they have plenty out there that probably will. Now let's get on to the spec of the bike. It's fixed gear, single speed, whatever, so there's not much to talk about here, but it is a full chromoly frame and fork. It does have bottle boss mounts, which is nice, even though I wish it had two. It has one set on the down tube, as well as it does have rear rack mounts. It does have a horizontal rear dropout with adjusters in it to really dial in that wheel alignment for the rear, as well as it does come with a fixed free hub, so you can run this single speed with both front and rear brakes, or fixed gear with a front brake, which I definitely recommend. Now, the cool thing with State is you can option what style of handlebar that you want for this bike, or you can ask for all three: bullhorn, drop bars, or risers. I really see this bike as a great urban commuter fixed gear, so I went with the riser bar. Now, the gearing on this bike, depending on how you want to ride the bike, you just flip the wheel around, fixed or freewheel. It does come with a State branded crankset, which is square taper. It's about on par for this price point. You're not really going to get an external bottom bracket for $300. It did have a 26.0 riser bar. I wish it would have been a 31.8. It does come with both front and rear brakes as mentioned, as well as clip-ons so that you can add it to the frame if needed. And this bike is spec'd with their shallower wheel, which I definitely highly recommend. I prefer a lighter weight wheel any day of the week. These are black. The only thing I do have to point out is they aren't black anodized. The front rim, just with the riding I did for this review, already showing signs of brake wear, so eventually that is going to turn into a silver brake track. But it didn't squeal, which is great, because typically when it's like that, they make some noise until they're fully basically cleaned off. And it's spec'd with 23C tubed tires. And it's topped with a generic saddle. Now let's get into the price. This bike, again, stock, with just one handlebar, you're looking at $299 with free shipping, but that price can inflate depending on all the options that you can add. Next, let's get on to basically my final thoughts on this bike. Is it worth buying? What did I think about it? And should you buy it? So initially when I rode this bike, it feels like every other fixed gear at this price point. Anything within the $250 to $350 range, they all basically are spec the same. The only real difference is the color and sometimes some of the components. So let's break it down easily. Frame, nothing magical, but you do get the color options, which is nice for somebody who just wants something that looks really good or is just your style. I think they nail it there with the options they have available. 2, the wheels. Way better in my opinion, just as far as the rotational weight. Any fixed gear that I've tried with that deeper section V, it just feels so much slower than it needs to. I get it if you're a bigger rider or the street's really bad, you want that shorter spoke and the deeper wheel. That makes sense, but for anybody else, I think this is the wheel set to go with if you're going to buy a CoreLine. Tires suck. I don't think you should ride 23s anymore. No one's doing it. I think you should spec this bike with a 25 at minimum, even a 28. If you're riding this around the streets, you're going to need it. You don't need to have 23s pumped to 110 PSI anymore. Gearing, that is something that's going to be a mixed bag. I am a cadence rider, and like I mentioned in my ride impressions, I think they should have spec'd up one tooth on this bike. It's definitely racier gearing. I would put a one size larger rear cog or freewheel in there for my liking for city riding. If you're going to put a basket on this bike or load it up with any weight, you're going to need to lighten the ratio, in my opinion, unless you're just a powerhouse and you really like to spin at very low cadence. Handlebars, too narrow. That's all I'm going to need to say. They're just too narrow. I'm not a super big guy, but I just felt really squished. I get it for weaving in tight stuff. Some people like the thinner bar. I think they could have spec'd it out another 60 millimeters or so, because you can always cut bars down, but you can't make them wider. So I think that would have been a good upgrade, just to feel like you could maneuver and handle the bike a little bit more. Cranksets, fine. I mean, it's definitely something that would be worthy of an upgrade if you're going to really try to put the power down and really ride this bike hard. But I think for general riding, and if this is your second bike or just your commuter, I think it's fine. It's going to hold up overall. So should you buy this bike? It's tough. I think that there's so much in this category as far as there's definitely cheaper bikes. I think State did kind of the right sweet spot as far as the price point goes because of the spec on some of the components. Cranksets, I think, are about on par. It's definitely better than some, but not the best. Wheels, I think, really is where it shines. I think these wheels are definitely better than any other stock bike that I've ridden. But again, they do need bigger tires. I think the stem and handlebar situation is an easy upgrade if you want to do it at home to a 31.8 to kind of modernize this in a way where you can swap bars out easier. because most things come 31.8 now. So I think it's definitely a solid buy, especially if there's just a certain colorway that you like. I don't think a bad decision here. The only thing I'd recommend is doing the shallow wheels. So if you have any more questions about the State CoreLine, please comment in the comments below. I'd love to answer your questions if I can help. And make sure to subscribe and turn notifications on so you can see all my bike reviews, vlogs, and all the other content that I currently make for this channel. I'm definitely experimenting a lot more and giving you guys a little more diverse content lately. So I hope you like that. So thanks for watching another episode of Locked In.